course, there are things that can get in the way of creativity too. So how do you recognize what might be blocking creativity within a business? There can be conceptual blocks. Those would be mental obstacles that really limit the way a problem is defined and thereby limit the number of alternative solutions that could apply to that problem. And those are really due to a failure to see broadly enough what the context is so that you can frame the problem more openly. And certainly you've been in a position to hear, ah, that's a terrible idea, there's no budget for it, we can't do that, you can't make that big a change, no, we already have something that's just like that, this is not any use at all, and all of those miserable things that you should never say in a brainstorming session, and really are not great responses to creative ideas and tend to annoy the daylights out of the people proposing the ideas, making them less likely to even think up new ideas, much less offer them to you. So I'm going to present this argument, but you don't want to be left with the notion that, hey, the more education you have, the dumber you are, you're never going to have any ideas. So let's look at the nuance within this claim. So the claim here is that if in a discipline you have a set way of doing things formally, you may be stymied in ways that keep you from opening up and looking at novel approaches. So not, don't go to school, that would be a bad thing for me to be saying in this context, but think about the rules of your discipline, maybe reach out to others in a different discipline so that you can think about what boundaries you may be working within and transcend them with their help. And it may be that the people you need to pull in have a background in something that is really unlike what your background is, and they may come from art or the user experience. They may have a background in biology so that they have a sense of how problems are solved within the biological world in a wide variety of ways. Other facilities within engineering, the frameworks of others may help you to change constraints and move beyond what may be a box in which you have either knowingly or unwittingly put yourself. It may be that the more experience somebody has in a job, the more stuck they are in, well, we've always done it this way, we couldn't possibly do it any other way, that wouldn't work. So in this model, people who are too stuck in their own experience and education, not that experience or education are themselves bad, might lose creative problem-solving ability because they had been rewarded and had a repeated experience of working within the same bounds. And those creative blocks, the formal education tells you, this is how we do it, these are the rules that we use, you will use them too, or you won't be doing it right. So you want to be aware of what those issues might be so that you can move beyond them and build your team in ways that cross, at least outside your discipline. Experience in a job, often you can find what might seem like a klutzy, uninformed question from, say, a new employee or an intern who asks what turns out to be a kernel of wisdom. Why do you do it that way? Because we've always done it that way, is not really a satisfying answer for that person. And even the older, experienced employee giving that answer will hear, well, actually, why do we do it that way? Let's rethink it. So those intrusive, maybe even rude questions can uncover novel approaches. And you don't want to be in a position where an individual has so much rehearsal of a single way of doing things that they lose their ability to experiment, to improvise, to take chances, or even just take a mental detour. Complacency, we're fine the way we are, is definitely a creative block. It keeps you from asking the good questions and makes it impossible to find any answers if you don't look for them. Constancy, this is already in place, this is what we do, and we're going to keep doing it. These are the rules, this is our language, these are our procedures, can be a block to creativity as well. And sometimes just the way to get out of that is to think of what an analogous product or industry might be and see whether they do it in a different way. So you see that in the slow movement toward continuous manufacturing, in other words, round the clock, not batch by batch, in the pharmaceutical industry. And they're quite slow to it, as many other industries have shifted to it long since. It has obvious advantages because if you can catch a mistake in process and fix it, you don't have a lot of ruined product first to throw away and lose money on. But in the case of pharmaceuticals, you have potentially a drug ingredient in there, so disposal has to be careful and expensive just to make sure you don't contaminate water supplies. So doing it right, catching mistakes, and fixing it along the way should have happened long ago. But the pharmaceutical industry was slow to look to other analogous industries and realize, oh, it's time for us to do that too. Compression, looking too close to, well, here we are, we just look down, we don't see the big picture, can be a creative block as well. So how do you get through those blocks? Well, clearly you make space for people to challenge assumptions without getting in trouble. Breaking the rules, you make space for people to consider ways that the rules can be broken, and you want to make sure that everybody understands what's breaking a rule without jeopardizing the company, its products, anybody's safety. So oh, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission should be taken thoughtfully and carefully. But you want to move toward an environment of imagination and intuition, buttressed by logic as well, so that's why you need different contributors with different skills and different areas of focus. Fear of failure is not really helpful at all, assuming that your risks are planned, mitigated, understood. So again, you don't want to move from we do things right to, hey, we're creative and we do things wrong. So it's more nuanced than just, well, we're stuck and now we're not stuck, but we don't make anything that anybody would ever want to buy. So how do you get there? Well, certainly bounce ideas off of people with different mindsets, different approaches, different kinds of people. Think about analogies in competitors and sister industries and read about them, think about how they might influence you. So you'll be doing this anyway in your innovation reading for this course in the hopes that it becomes a habit. And of course, read about products and patents and innovation in related areas so that you are aware of, oh, well, if somebody else is thinking about a way to deliver that, maybe that would, if we did this with a different material in a different space, I wonder if we could transform how we deliver, and so on. So takeaways here, be aware of the put downs and idea killers and find ways to get through them so that ideas have space to be nurtured and grow. Think about where formal work practices and training are not serving your needs, but instead are creating some kind of block to creativity. And think about what it takes as a block-busting technique to get around or through or give other people tools to make sure that ideas have space. And again, here, diverse thinking, in which diversity refers to all sorts of aspects, is going to be your secret weapon.